the August Environmental Commission meeting to order.
7:04.
Roll call, please.
Chair Linda.
Here.
Vice Chair Jamie.
Here.
Secretary Pat here. Commissioner Jim.
Here.
Commissioner Sharma.
Yep.
Commissioner Jim.
Here.
Commissioner Sharma.
Yep.
Right, and Dan is excused for perhaps some or all of the meeting. We do our pledge. We do our pledge.
Yep. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, citizen comment period.
How was the weed out?
I didn't make it. Jim was there for a little bit. But it was a good turnout. We had 6 people. And yeah, not too much to report back. I made some benches and planted some wildflowers and milkweed, stuff like that. So that was good to see. And they had to create like a plan with the parks. So they come back like every 2 days, and they're supposed to. Good project for the Eagle Scout.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
And when was that? The Saturday?
They did it on Saturday. Yeah.
Okay, August 21st.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was good.
Yeah, I was out there digging holes for about 2 hours, watching the Boy Scouts, trying to remember when I had that much energy. But yeah, it was a good day for it. We got. It's a nice area. It's bigger than this table. It was cleared out and replanted. So.
Very nice.
But if you ever plan on going and you read the sign, or hear that tools will be provided, don't believe that. They'll be the wrong tools probably.
All right, bring your own tools.
Yeah.
BYOT. Okay, we'll close that.
7:07.
Sure. Okay, next is approval of minutes.
I looked at them, they looked good.
Yeah, especially since,
Did you? Sorry.
boy, I've got a loud voice.
You too. We felt you from above.
So yeah, Pat, there was amended minutes that are sitting in front of us.
Yeah, they
Or
are.
revised, or whatever the appropriate term is.
Did I catch that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right.
I think on page 2, section 4A, third line, recorded where nature center children's hands-on, is it exhibits?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
for National Night Out or
Oh yeah, it should have been for
not Arbor Day?
National Out, yeah.
What
I
is the
missed
correction?
Line 3 reported that where nature center children's hands-on insert exhibits, I think, or display.
Yeah,
And before and in the 4th line. And then, did you see that?
Nature's Children's Exhibit,
Hands-on exhibits.
hands-on exhibit. Okay.
And then it should be for National Night Out, not Arbor Day. I think I just left that out. Wanna know what the problem is when you read it? Like I read it like I wrote it, like so I missed it. So I didn't I'm like, oh that looked good. I didn't even notice the Arbor Day. I'm like, oh that looked good. I didn't even notice the Arbor Day.
I'll move to approve as amended.
I'll second.
Okay, Jim, Jamie, okay. Jamie. Okay. All in,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Hopping on to our unfinished business.
Okay, so I've got a couple of things. Really quick, we got a letter from the Richard Olva, who's the chief of police. Thank you very much for participating in the 2021 National Night Out event. We are extremely grateful to those businesses and individuals that were able to provide financial backing and sincerely appreciate those who provided in-kind donations, volunteers who offered their time and talent, and vendors and agencies that furnished displays and offered demonstrations. Our National Night Out event has prospered into a popular event for our community, and it would not be possible without each and every one of you. On behalf of all members of the Franklin Police Department, thank you once again for taking the time to become involved. Please join us for 2022 NNO event scheduled for Monday, August 1st. So just a thank you.
And that thank you, Jamie, your reading is from, last name is spelled
Oliva.
Oliva, Oliva,
Oliva, yeah.
Chief of Police.
Yep. Here, do you want it? It's just there you go. So you can look at his name and stuff. Or we can even put it on file, it doesn't matter. Yep, and then I have another thing. Where are they? So for you have the name of the person that won the garden. But I kept the other. So we had 24 total people. They would want more information from the Environmental Commission. And then the other 11 either said no or they had no response. So I didn't make a spreadsheet yet because I'm not sure if I should put that on my private computer or if I should give you the names of the yesers, and then everybody can watch me throw away the knowers so we know that they were actually, that's why I have them separate.
Sure.
So I'm not sure how we wanted to do that or keep that information.
I'm thinking that since it's the commission, it should become part of the commission's files, and
Okay.
it's up to the commission if you're comfortable.
It's up to you. I don't
Throw away the knowers.
throw away that because I feel like I'll rip them up and throw them away. Like we'll destroy them. We destroyed them. How about that? And those are the yesers. I'll do that.
Shredder. It's a shredder. It's a shredder.
Oh yeah. Can you shred them? Do you have a shredder? Or like a or do you have like one of those document bins where like everything gets destroyed?
Yeah. Like
If we
accounting.
do, I don't know what
accounting.
it is, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
If we
accounting.
do, I don't know what
accounting.
it is, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Usually accounting has those.
Yeah, that's our like at the school. I know the school district has them. I don't know if we have one in our building, but we'll leave those there. We'll talk after the meeting. They are going to be destroyed though.
Who was
Okay.
today's winner?
The lady's name is Jackie Parmley, and she lives in the apartment complex behind Ware Nature Center.
That's nice.
I did check, she does have the right to grow a garden, and, it's now up to the city if contact Prairie Nursery. It's not going to be delivered till spring. She knows that, but if you want, I'll contact Prairie, see how they want to arrange for payment and ship. I could arrange to have it shipped to me, and we could deliver it, but I don't know what the city's preference is, or who's going to pass the hat to come up with the $140 or so that.
Right. The commission doesn't technically have like a budget at all.
Right.
So I'm not totally sure how to address that question.
I think Dan was dealing something with that, like
Well, that was my understanding.
That we had it.
It was going to come up with.
yeah.
understanding
that we had
it
it.
was going to come up with,
Yeah,
so.
because otherwise we wouldn't have had that big conversation about getting this going. Like, so I don't. I would say we know who the winner is. She knows she's not getting until spring, so I think we can keep that. She knows she's not getting until spring, so I think we can keep that as unfinished business for when Dan comes back next month.
Okay. I'm gonna make a note to follow up with him about it because this is something that it might be worth doing in the 2023 budget. Because right now they're undertaking the 2022 budget and it may or may not be possible to request. So unless Alderman Mayer's already made the request, I did not. So then that would be something that could be in 2022. So item to make a request for the commission to have funds for the number of events that you do. Because at this point, my department is expending funds on your printing costs and that kind of thing, which is nominal and that's fine, but like you do a lot of work, so it might be worth asking to
Or
have.
just a small budget.
Yep. So, yep.
So that might be something to ask.
Yes, I've brought that up at meetings in the past because sometimes there are events that we have had at the library where we offer bottled water, or, you know, I'm saying some snack or whatever. And in the past, the members have just absorbed the cost. Also, sometimes I think it's nice, and we're dealing with different groups. If indeed we send a thank you, but maybe we send, you know, in addition, maybe a gift card or something like that, something a little more physical.
Yeah,
So,
or even providing a small like gift bag with like a water and a snack. Because for
exactly.
them coming during that night.
Yes.
Like a what was it? Like a hospitality. And it doesn't have. I don't think we have to be super spending on those.
And there's circumstances where it might make sense for you guys to purchase equipment or materials. So the cycle actually starts somewhat sooner than you would think, but and I'm not directly involved in that process typically. So
Jim, I'm reading your summary here for National Night. By the way, thank you for providing this to me. It's really very helpful. How did you come up with this? Was just was this something people were questioning?
I was just waiting for the rest of the discussion to kind of peter out before I piped in again.
Okay.
I'll go through my notes briefly. The booth was, I thought, extremely well received by both parents and children. The stuffed animals were pretty cool. The 50 seed packets that I had put together, I could have probably given out another 30 to children. So that, I thought, went well. I sent a thank you letter to, for next year, I would encourage us, if we're going to continue this, to get 2 tables together so that the environmental groups can, you know, the opposite ends of the whatever you call it there. Whatever you call it there. It would be nice, I think, if we were going to talk about environmental commission issues, that we do some more handouts. I tried to do that one on
The hazard one.
the hazardous waste
It was-
disposal.
The hazard one.
The hazardous waste
It was-
disposal, and I forgot about it.
Yeah, and we're gonna actually take it to let's see if we can get it at the library.
I've got it. I'll check again as far as having it available on one of the tables at the
Yeah,
public
and I think,
library.
you know, the city does a fair amount of stuff, and, you know, just think,
Great.
you know, the city does a fair amount of stuff, and, you know, just at the Ward Recycling Center, there's a whole list of things that they'll accept. The free mulch is not an insignificant thing for a lot of people who garden or landscape, and people who garden or landscape, and you have the disposal of lawn clippings, and it affects both the water quality and sewage issues here. So I think we could do a couple of handouts to remind people about stewardship issues with Franklin.
Other thing, I thought we were going to do some sort of collection at the National Night Out, and I know that I believe Arthur kind of mentioned like bringing like either old batteries, and we didn't follow through with that. I think we need to communicate with the police department more, especially when they're doing their advertising on it, so people know to bring that stuff. Because I was thinking about it, I was like, if I read the advertisement, and we didn't do the battery collection, so it doesn't matter, I guess. But when I was reading it, there was nothing to collect cans for it. We could have done different things. But I think we should plan a little further in advance, so when we do contact them, and we can say, hey, can you add this? Like, we're going to have a battery drop-off for lithium batteries, or we're going to have a CFL container for CFLs or LED lights, or something like that. But I think we would have to work a little bit the police department in order to advertise it, so we can have more of those. That and like the advertising for the flower, like it was word of mouth. So when people came up, we were like, oh, we're also having a drawing for a flower garden. Versus maybe if we can get that advertising somehow out there, more people would be looking for that. And
Yeah, at Arbor Day,
oh yeah.
some of those things could.
Oh yeah, we could even do some collections at Arbor Day as well. That's actually a good idea.
You know, we've got more space at that. It's kind of
That might be a better, and it's spring cleaning and for recycling.
Could maybe offer an idea to the commission for the planning of the night out is that there was 2 or 3 tents out there. And I kind of felt like it was kind of like first come first serve.
They had
like the YMCA, like
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like put them in different tents. Like,
Yeah, they have names. They had names on all of the tables. Like when we got there, like our environmental commission was on the table.
Okay.
So, and that just might be like for next year when we say, hey, we have this organization that's going to be with us, and they signed up. But I think that would make more sense, like having like the Palms and the Little League all together.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the kids.
Put them together.
Yeah.
But like I think you guys could easily use 2 tables
Oh, yeah.
minimum, maybe even 3. So if we get like 4 tables next year,
Yeah.
I think that'd be cool.
And I think
Yeah,
as
there's a
well.
good crowd.
Yes.
It was very
Wasn't
large.
it a good turnout?
It was
Mhm.
beautiful.
Oh,
Well,
it's
it's beautiful
great.
weather too.
It was
Yeah.
good weather.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anything else on night out?
Okay.
All right. Moving on to articles. All right. Moving on to articles for the next newsletter. We were having Pat work on one for our item C, presentation at the library. However,
You want that news now, or? You want that news now, or? Unfortunately, restriction at the library for the Fadra room is still at 65, and in another month it might go back to where it was in May at 35. Contacted Patrick Gain, and he said, Pat, this is the high school. He's got 80 plus students enrolled in his junior and senior environmental science class he teaches. He says, Pat, I have to offer this to all my students. I just can't limit it. I says, let me work with a library director, see what she comes up. Do live stream this on our Facebook page. Then Patrick got back to me and he says, I have to wrap my head around this. He says, I don't know how I'm going to keep track of obviously those who are live streaming. So I went to the technical person at the library, Sam, who would be live. You're going to be able to identify which student, is.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we're at a little bit as far as, because we're gearing this to water quality because that's the curriculum in September and October for the high school.
Yeah.
And the speaker we have that I met with in October for the high school. And the speaker we have that I met with at Milwaukee Riverkeeper is just perfect for this. Yeah. But I think, again, if I explain it to her, and we're just going to kind of go forward then in 2022.
Could you ask Patrick if he would
22.
Could you ask Patrick if he would do a Google Meet? Because then every kid's name would pop up for him. And so what we could do is, instead of his students coming, we could have it open to this small community, and we could have a Google Meet going, bring our laptop, do a Google Meet.
This is beyond me. And if it's beyond me, then I gladly turn the facilitating of this over to whomever.
Or it'd be the live, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this is what, and as far as the newsletter article goes, I was trying to time and want to concur the wording that's going to occur in the library newsletter. Well, this is what Jennifer at the library came up with. In order to provide physical distancing, registration will be required for this free program. Masks for all attendees strongly recommended. Again, the program may be canceled due to then it could also be live streamed on the Facebook page. I thought, we're also opening this to the citizens or the residents of Franklin. As a resident, if I am reading this in the newsletter, I'm going to say, nope, I'm going to watch another episode of NCIS tonight. I'm going to watch another episode of NCIS tonight. It's just too much work to go through. Yeah. So, but what I do, or what I would like to pursue, is what we had in place for April of 2020. And that was, we had a DNR speaker lined up, who no longer is with the DNR, but she was going to talk on flooding. And I think offering that in March or April, that really is going to interest a lot more residents, because we've got 3-4 vulnerable areas here in the city of Franklin that, every spring or something like that, you can't drive down the street or something like that. So again, Marion, if you have a contact at the DNR, and I can, we even had the article, I think we had it in the newsletter in the spring of 2020, and we had it in the library newsletter. But again, when the pandemic took hold in March, it was just canceled automatically. We didn't have to pursue it. So that would be my 22, is just let's revisit our flooding topic.
Yep, I think that had been the commission's preference at their previous meeting too, so I have made contact with someone. I haven't fixed the date yet, or figured out who exactly it's going to be, but the city of Franklin actually has a person assigned to, they were going to help me figure out who to talk to.
Okay.
So did you have a specific date in mind, or?
Oh, I'd have to look to see in April when Easter falls,
Hang on.
yeah.
Let's pull up a calendar just to get it done.
Easter would be April 17th.
Thank you. I don't have my calendar done.
Easter is that late.
April 17th. Yeah.
Do this.
Now you got to find out probably spring break. Is that
Spring break.
whatever for the schools? Is that before or after?
Hang on. I can look it up.
No clue on that.
You would think I'd have it in my,
I remember this being a question of before or after the break or during.
Okay, too, he's also big on March Madness, so it can't interfere with basketball. I know that. Okay, I know he's a huge basketball guy.
All right, so they're going to have off 26th is their spring break, which actually I believe coincides with March Madness, because March Madness usually starts right around St. Patrick's Day.
Okay, so this April 20th to the 26th, the
So
spring break
March.
that's March?
March 20th through the 26th.
Okay, that's out.
And then they are going to have April 14th through the 18th off for Easter.
Okay, so we're looking at that window. I just shoot for the first week in April
Yeah.
to be safe, and we usually do it like on a Wednesday
So like the
night.
6th. 4, 6. Oh,
Wednesday
so like the 6th.
night.
4, 6. Oh, is opening day the...
Oh, don't
No, I
go
think
there.
it's in March. I think opening day is in March. It's like a really early opening day. It's March 31st, so we'd be fine.
So under review of articles then for the City of Franklin newsletter, we do have something in, don't we, for September? We do have something in, don't we, for September? And that was in the minutes from,
You approved an article several meetings ago.
Yeah, we approved.
Red Pike.
It's
Uh-huh.
Roots Buckthorn, I believe.
So again, I'll just kind of,
It's
Uh-huh.
Roots Buckthorn, I believe.
so again, I'll just kind of reiterate that.
Yeah.
And it's on Buckthorn, did you say, Jamie?
Yes. it
Okay.
is. I think it's about how you can pull saplings right now or something.
Yeah, it was seasonal, so I would suggest though, the Root Pike Win is very busy, and so I've had a little difficulty coordinating with them to get additional articles. So if there are other resources that you guys want to pursue for that,
Okay, so
please do.
There's two contacts I talked to, and then Todd Serping. So maybe I'll write down Todd's name.
You know what might be interesting, especially since there's a goal of working with young people, is to invite
them, right?
the young people. Yeah. If the commission wanted it, it's just a suggestion.
Yeah. and then Something they could write about for your environmental. Like they could even talk about water, like what they've learned about water. And so it could be in our next one.
Yeah, because I believe you will have another round of articles and dates to choose from.
So, Pat, do you want to check with Pat?
Yeah, I'll contact him tomorrow and just tell him what our decision is. I will let Jennifer know at the library that we're going to, again, forego the, and possibly future restrictions. Thank her very much for offering, but again, it's just, as Marion helped me find the wording for this, we have too many moving parts.
Yeah.
And then, let's see who else.
And
Lisa, you said you were going to let Lisa know we're not going to have that article then?
Yep.
Okay, you'll take care of Lisa, and I'll take care of Jennifer, and I'll take care of Patrick, and then I will contact Katie, the speaker at Milwaukee Riverkeeper.
I would do Patrick and Katie on the same email so they can be in contact with each other.
And yes,
Because then that
exactly.
way, Katie on the same email so they can be in contact with each other.
And yes,
Because then
exactly.
that way
And
he can have her just Skype in.
And
to the
I
last
have,
round.
they both of them, they kind of want it. When I talked to one, she wanted to know him, and he kind of wanted, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The other reason that is so important is another
Adopt.
program that Milwaukee Riverkeeper has geared toward young people. It's called Adopt a River. I'm going to share.
I have one.
You have one?
Thank you.
Give one to Jim. Mirror this, if you would. But again, this is something, and they have a national cleanup in April where you do kind of adopt a river and spend the Saturday morning your stewardship event.
Huh? And did you want to check with Patrick to see if he's got any aspiring writers that would want to do an article?
I missed this. What am I?
we were talking about other resources in the Franklin newsletter, and suggestion was made that maybe someone from the younger part of Franklin.
Submit an article for the City of Franklin newsletter.
Yeah, so ask Patrick if he would have any students that would be interested in writing an article on an environmental topic to be submitted into the newsletter. And we'll take multiple articles, and then we will pick the one that we find to be the most appropriate for the most appropriate, I guess, I don't know, for the season, or the one we like the best, or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I see when there was something.
Have you talked to Patrick recently?
I believe the last time was last week, knowing that he knows we're having the meeting tonight, and I kind of said I'd get back to him.
Because they had another science teacher position open this week, or a couple weeks ago, at the high school. That's why I was wondering. I was like, I hope it wasn't him. I don't think it was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
He and I communicate pretty much by email, and he's been wonderful all summer back and forth with
Yeah,
me.
so then he's still there. So that was somebody else.
Yeah.
That must have been.
Yeah, this was just last week, again, back and forth, kind of with the idea. I'll talk to you after Wednesday night's meeting. Okay. A resource. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay.
All right, so now we're looking at an early April 2022 for
Yeah.
the in-person meeting. Okay? Moving on, item D, Buckthorn Subcommittee, any up?
I'll be honest, the last couple weeks have been a little crazy, so we weren't able to get together. But I think maybe tonight we can sit down and find a time, solidify a little something that we can get together on. But from the last meeting, I remember you kind of want to do like a public forum type thing. So I don't know how we want to.
What I recall at this point, nobody else in the state of Wisconsin has a plan for dealing with buckthorn on citywide basis. So whatever we do, we're kind of blazing the trail here. And since Milwaukee County hasn't found the urgency to come up with a plan, where the problem is significant everywhere on the county properties, I really question our need to be so far in front on this. I think we have to continue to encourage people to do what they can to make sure they're keeping it out of or under control, make sure they're keeping it out of or under control on their properties. But, the city's going to be overwhelmed trying to get it all out. We heard as much from some of the past meetings we've had. So, I don't see where, and significant time from the city to deal with this problem, that we should be doing any more than encouraging people to try to keep it under control on their own properties. I don't see where we have the resources. I don't see anybody willing to put up. Maybe next year in the funding cycle we can get some money, but then is the city interested in taking it? Will they commit people, to do it? To me, it's what's going on in the world. It's like buckthorn is like, I'm sorry.
The flea on the tail of the dog?
Yeah.
And I just wonder if it's we're making a bigger thing of it than we need to. Tom, I suspect, would like and get rid of it. I've tried to be there for a day, and they decided to plant plants instead.
Yeah.
So,
I was actually going to try and talk to I don't know who, I'm not sure who to talk to. Maybe you guys would know. But like I know Ware will do controlled burns.
Yeah.
So if I, Remington, I know him, maybe we could plan something, but then I'd have to get approval from the Milwaukee Park System because, you know, Franklin doesn't, you know, it's on Franklin land, but, you know.
Controlled burns, even at Ware though, are primarily designed to keep the prairie under control.
Prairie, yeah, so.
And buckthorn,
You know, so-
controlled burns, even at Ware though, are primarily designed to keep the prairie under control.
Prairie, yeah, so.
And buckthorn is not strictly a prairie plant.
It's highly infested. I mean, in Grovesman, it's highly infested everywhere. So,
Yeah.
but I agree with everything you're saying, Jim.
And buckthorn is not strictly a prairie plant.
It's highly infested. I mean, in Grovesman, it's highly infested everywhere. So,
Yeah.
but I agree with everything you're saying, Jim. I don't think, unless someone's going to put the funds up. But I think like, if we just we talked to Paul and Todd from the thing. Unless someone's going to put the funds up. But I think like, if we just we talked to Paul and Todd from the environmental group at the high school.
Yeah.
Keep getting people informed. Just send out, make some brochures up, literature. You know, maybe get some parents and weed out, or you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, this group here can decide, hey, we're going to work on this park. Who wants to come? Hey, we're going to work on this area. Who wants to come? And then we just start making people more and more aware of it. I don't know.
I'm going to kind of go back to a couple of things. So first of all, for city resources, we do have, I forget his name every single time.
Tom?
DPW.
Oh,
What's his name?
Doodash.
he came a couple months ago.
Yes,
Is
the man
it-
with the glasses, dark
Yeah.
hair.
Doodash? Is it
He was
Doodash?
he was at a couple meetings for us.
Tom Rhea is the city forester.
Not the forester, the other guy.
Oh,
Thank you.
is the city
Oh,
engineer.
engineer.
Okay, because I'm thinking of Public Works.
Yeah, I was thinking Public Works too. for
Yep,
some
so
reason.
Kevin Schluter is the director of public works. He's the superintendent.
Okay.
And
Got it, but
the
it's
city engineer.
Glenn.
Yeah.
It's Glenn. So he said he's interested in doing, so I'm not going to go into a park that I'm not working in to do it. So I think this is where it comes in to say, okay, well, if you're working on a park, how can we get you to continuously work on this park to remove the buckthorn? So can you give me a 5-year plan? Is that something we can do when you start working on a park? Can we do a 5-year plan where you are targeting invasives to make sure that you're removing them? Now that's probably going to come from our ordinances as well. And I think we have a lot going on in the city that will end up, we can add certain things and provide a little bit of feedback here and there that will then help us and make it like a priority with people. So I think it's going to be a roundabout way, but it's not going to come from us and saying, okay, this is a noxious weed, or it's on the noxious weed list, blah, 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 blah. It's going to have to come from, updating these ordinances to make sure when developments go in that they're also being, environmentally responsible. But then also to in and we start developing parks or rehabilitating parks, whatever that could be, any type of city land, we need to be able to make sure that we can have a resource or available funds or whatever, a 5-year plan to make sure that we can remove the invasive species. I think it's like the little baby steps. So like one little baby step at a time versus I think we were trying to just jump on top of it and tackle it right away.
Yeah, when I was trying to come up with some kind of city requirement, the thing that made the most sense to me was to put something in the redevelopment requirements for properties or the sale of residential properties where invasive species such as, whichever ones we choose to include must be either removed or at that point, so that the issue, buckthorn on their property. But if you're selling your property, now's the time to get serious about it. And the same with if you want to be a developer, and of course from what I've seen of developments, they pretty well level everything. And,
But then holding them accountable too for 5
Yeah.
years to make sure that it doesn't come back, or 10 years, or however long we decide that it can take. So I think that's kind of where it's going to lead in kind of to our next unfinished business, is kind of working in a roundabout way.
Is there a checklist for any of the approval where we can have this? Otherwise, if it is in an ordinance, I don't know if we'll draw an attention, but if there is a checklist to check off, saying,
So for new commercial developments and certain types of what are referred to as subdivision plats, which is a land division document, where you split up a piece of land into home lots, and usually also like stormwater and those kinds of things. There is a requirement to have a landscape plan for new developments in the site plan.
right,
And then in new developments in the site plan.
right.
And then in some subdivision plats, if they meet certain standards to trigger that requirement. Typically, those requirements are related to whether something nearby is a different type of use, because then we require screening and berms and those kinds of things. So currently, there isn't landscaping requirements that are like strictly applied for residential development. For new commercial developments, the landscaping plan is always required as part of a new site plan. It does not refer to any other part of the code in terms of like noxious or subnoxious weeds. I check for those things, and also for invasive species in landscape plans, which are unfortunately fairly common. But there's no requirement related to invasive species removal. And Jamie's alluding to the UDO update, that is something you could suggest. So I don't know how it would be applied just yet, but I think that's an interesting question.
Tax break for those that want to have environmentally friendly subdivisions and utilize massive amounts of solar energy, like the one on Grange and Sunny Slope. But anyways, that's fine. You want to put big houses in, okay, put a couple solar panels on that maybe too.
Okay.
All right, sorry. We were on Buckthorn.
Okay.
It was Buckthorn. It was
Yeah.
me digressing about how
Okay.
we can have some more environmentally friendly subdivisions.
All right, so,
Okay, so when did you have your last subcommittee meeting? Was
It
that
was
in
before. It was in July.
And that was reflected in the minutes, their subcommittee. Okay, so we haven't had anything since, okay?
And that's something maybe we can, I think we need to see what this UDO is going to be about, and I'll talk in a second about that, I guess. But, and then we also have, the Milwaukee said they're going to have something by the end of the year. So this encourage and maybe just tweak that was in the minutes last week, or 2 months ago, I should say, that we could end up giving to property owners if we want to go back and look at that and revise that. So we have something that would help encourage property owners to start looking at buckthorn on their property. We should maybe wait to see what the county is going to say about removing buckthorn, how they're going to handle it, and then also see what we can do here with the UDO or the new ordinances.
So again, if I can just utilize what Jim gave me here in the minutes, suggest deferring any action until Milwaukee County has a plan in place, control and eliminate.
Perfect. I like that.
Okay,
Does everyone agree with that?
yeah, the new secretary is sitting down there in a turquoise shirt.
I think so.
I'd
He
like
is a
to-
godsend, thank you, he is a
Right.
godsend.
I really would like the city to ask that the city require, invasive control, as part of any new development. Or if there's a way to refer it to, because I'm sure the city attorney would just have a field day with it, but ask his advice on how to structure such a requirement. I don't know what the polite, genteel way of asking the city get off the butt and really put it in writing.
So the current discussion.
Put it in writing.
So the current discussion was about amending the municipal code for noxious weeds. The portion of the ordinances that relates to development processes is the Unified Development Ordinances, or UDO, and the Unified Development Ordinances, or UDO. And there is a procedure to amend that. So you could make a recommendation to amend the UDO instead. I would have to look at which pieces of the code specifically relate to landscape plans, but it's part of this. Look at which pieces of the code specifically relate to landscape plans, but it's part of the site plan requirement. And currently landscaping requirements, it's basically like they specify the number of plants in sort of the general categories of plants, but again, there's no discussion of invasive species. Categories of plants, but again, there's no discussion of invasive species. So, Plan Commission already has the ability to require like a performance surety on landscaping plans, and Common Council also has that ability. So that's kind of built in, but you could ask to add invasive species, or in certain contexts, you could ask to do it as well. So.
Well, now, since we're talking about that, I'll add one more question to go along with that, which is later in this note, my notes here. Can we write how many trees they are destroying as part of a development?
That is currently required. So
It
we don't
is.
do it by the number of trees, typically. It's the percentage of the area of canopy. That is what is the mature and young woodlands. So you may remove up to 50%, but we do also give credit in landscape plans for preserving existing trees. But then you may, if an area is considered a woodland, then there is a limit to how much you can remove without requesting the natural resource special exception that you as a commission review. But they're typically counted. Individual trees can be used as credit in a landscape plan, but then the preservation standard is for trees by area of the canopy.
I kind of understand that.
Sorry.
The percentage of the canopy. Well, I mean, all right, but
So maybe the wording in that could be like percentage of native trees, and so then that way it might be more difficult, like if it's a buckthorn area that's just full of buckthorn, so that canopy is going to look really, really big. But if you take out all that buckthorn, now that canopy is going to be
it's not
smaller.
considered a tree though, so.
But I don't think they necessarily, when they look at it, they're probably looking at an aerial photo. Are they not of green?
I thought it
sites?
was, Jim.
So we require field verification.
So
So
it's
someone has to go out there and look at the trees, and we don't protect prohibited species. So they wouldn't count towards tree area, although there's some debate about whether or not that constitutes habitat. But buckthorn breast height, and this, we're starting to get into the actual life of the tree. That's beyond me a bit, but the diameter of breast height is how you determine the difference between the two standards that apply. But if it's a tree, it's a tree, and you can tell by looking at it, except that we don't protect invasive species, and noxious weeds. And then there's cottonwood, and one other tree is prohibited, but it's not considered a weed.
So buckthorn is prohibited then?
It's considered a subnoxious weed, so if someone wanted to remove it, even though it was part of an area, so like they're not required to protect buckthorn.
So if they were to protect a certain area, could we have, and maybe this might be a conversation for a subcommittee, maybe, I don't know, but could we say within this protected area, these invasives have to be removed? But we could ask that for an ordinance, okay,
So we, sorry, I'm gonna take this off.
You're fine.
Most of these kinds of development requests, depending on the type of development, and if a natural resource special exception occurs, we always require conservation easements, and the terms of those easements prohibit the removal of any plant material. Although again, we don't protect invasive species, but you could. But you could even suggest an amendment to that as a text document and then a drawing of the area. You could suggest changing the terms of the conservation easements. They're not specified in the UDO, it's a separate thing. Or where else could you put it? I'm gonna have to look, but yeah, in general, this is something that you could pursue forward. You could either request an amendment to the existing code or encourage these changes. During the discussion of the redrafting, because this whole ordinance is going to be rewritten top to bottom.
Yeah.
So
That was the kind of well, it would be nice, but until this is done, the UDO.
what do we do in the interim?
Until this is done, the UDO.
What do we do in the interim? Yep.
It's kind of well, okay, let's let that boat finish sailing down, and once it docks, and maybe when we can attach something.
So depending on how long it takes to draft an amendment, it's probably a 3-month time from the submittal of an application, whether it's by the commission or the department sponsors it, and it requires common council approval.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I got my notes.
Okay.
I'll probably be calling you more hey, so.
Yeah.
Okay, tree list.
Looked good. I like some of the editing they did on the good ones. Now the bad one needed a little bit more editing, The good one looked good.
Do you have any feedback?
I need a definition, I think, of what we're considering here as far as street trees. Is sidewalk in the road, in that little strip, in that area that we're looking at? So there's got to be a sidewalk and there has to be a road, and then that's a street tree?
I don't think there has to be a sidewalk. I think it's if they were to redo my, I have a weird work, right? But we don't have a sidewalk on our property. If we had space within that, I think it's 4 feet or 5 feet off the curb is technically city property.
So
even
the
though there's
right-of-way varies.
Okay.
So a street tree is any tree in the city of Franklin right-of-way. And this tree lives in parks. But the right-of-way is determined by a lot of different factors. But you can assume that, yes, you're correct, if there is a sidewalk, the right-of-way would include the sidewalk. So the tree could go between the sidewalk and the street. Otherwise, you're kind of guessing. You'd have to get someone out there to measure.
Because this is when I'm looking at the size of the trees, and I'm just kind of thinking if it's, and I'm saying within this particular diameter, those trees are just going to be too huge,
No, and I think they pick ones that are appropriate.
But if they're in parks too,
Yeah.
they could be, may not work on a street, but in a park.
but along the parkway.
But
along the parkway, of course, yeah.
Yep, yeah, so this is, really, it's a recommended tree list that the city of Forester wants to be able to pick from. We also share this list with developers, as here's the preferred trees, and I refer to it when I'm reviewing landscape plans. So, but generally speaking, these are trees that would be planted next to City of Franklin roads, either existing or future.
The non-approved ones, they just need to merge that last column to make it look pretty.
Okay.
See all the lines. It's just a formality. It's a formality. Other than that, it looked perfectly fine. And then I liked how we had like the flowering parts and stuff on the approved list to tell people like, hey, this is gonna flower, or no, it's not.
Yep, that is
Not.
Yep, that is something that people are asking for, is flowering trees. So I will ask the city forester if he has any other questions for you about this. I had hoped that he would join you this evening, but he's not available. So I think his goal is that you make a recommendation about the tree list. I think his goal is that you make a recommendation about the tree list to Common Council. I don't want to misrepresent that, but I think that's the end game. But he can speak for himself. So
We'll wait for him to come.
Keep it on again next month.
please,
Next month.
please.
Okay. UDO rewrite.
So we are, so tomorrow is a full day of the UDO rewrite for the city of Franklin. So they're coming in tomorrow. I know, woo woo. So they're coming in tomorrow. The company is, I forgot the name of it. How's for everyone to Birchline though, if I remember, like it says Birchline a lot.
Yeah, Birchline is actually the environmental consultant. So Halcyon Levine is a planning firm that has expertise in this, and then they specifically contracted someone with environmental expertise.
Perfect.
So
That's cool. So tomorrow they're doing this whole thing. Like they're gonna be coming in, department heads I believe are gonna be talking. And then at 3 o'clock, Mr. Sharma and I were invited to a round table with just the Common Council and then other members of the rewrite. So I will be attending at 3 o'clock.
Now, this meeting is tomorrow, and what's this meeting?
Council special meeting, Unified Development Ordinance Roundtable Workshop. Okay, and that's the agenda right there. And then the second one is for the public meeting. So I'll go to the 3 o'clock one. I've made plans for it. Commissioner Sharma is going to the 6 o'clock one, so he can see kind of what's, and then we will kind of come back to the table and kind of see what's going on with that. Because I believe it's just kind of like this is what's going to be going on. I'm not sure if we're actually going to be making any recommendations right away. At least it didn't seem that way.
Yeah, it appears to be a workshop, basically,
Yeah.
in how they go about.
yep. The commission is of course welcome to go to the 6 p.m. Any of you or members of the public, please do.
Oh, in here there's a second page that's like how to get involved. I think.
Yep. And then there is a website with a questionnaire.
Like how to get involved. I think.
Yep. And then there is a website with a questionnaire and a map. And so I don't have the URL for that with me, but it will be part of the materials that are distributed tomorrow, or should be. I may be a little ahead of the game here. But that map, the purpose of it is for the public to mark it up with things that they think are good, things that they think are bad, things that they have suggestions about, that kind of thing. And then there's a questionnaire, which should include questions like what Commissioner Cieslak was referring to, is like what parts of the code would you suggest changing and how. I haven't seen the final version of that, but I did mark it up to include some questions about mitigation and invasive species and that kind of thing. So not sure what made the final. Tell your friends.
Post it on Facebook.
Please, yeah, if you want.
or any Insta, Twitter, whatever you got. Snap.
TikTok,
Okay.
one of the kids are
I
into.
do have a question for you on this one. Should I email Heath and be like, hey, I'll be there, so they have like a space for me?
I mean, yeah, I can call them in the morning if I remember, but I have it at 10 o'clock, so.
So even the 6 o'clock, do I need to let him know that I'm attending?
No, if you want to give him a heads up, he'd probably appreciate that, but it's open to the public, so.
I said call. Let's email.
Yeah, we don't have any concerns about like quorum and that kind of stuff there, so.
All right,
I'll do that when I get home.
moving on to new business. Quarry reclamation plan.
Yep, so in your packets, you were provided with a copy of the 2020 draft, which I think is almost exactly the same, if not exactly the same. is currently working its way through legislative approval. So this is a plan for the reclamation of the quarry. If you have specific questions about it, I'm happy to take those questions down and find more information, but I've not had time to review this myself. The other department is responsible for this plan. So the adoption calendar for the reclamation plan, on September 23rd, there is an informational hearing about the quarry reclamation plan at Plan Commission. So those meetings are typically at Plan Commission. So those meetings are typically at 7 o'clock here in City Hall and Council Chambers.
7 p.m. or 7 a.m.
Yep, so and this is the September 23rd, 7 p.m. Yep, and then, yep, and then, so there's an informational hearing. There's always a public comment period at those meetings. I'm not totally sure if there was an officially noticed public hearing, which is there's a state law about that. But that is the informational hearing about it. The adoption, The adoption, it's currently calendared for October 5th for Common Council adoption. So presuming there is no controversy, that would be the meeting that they would take a decision on it at, given that given that the quarry is subject of a lot of discussion. There may be other meetings, but those are the ones that are currently set. So generally speaking, the things that I'm aware of about this are related to parks. I know that it's planned to become a park, basically.
Common Council is, I've got
October 5th.
October 5th, thank you.
Yep. So it's Plan Commission.
Plan Commission is
23rd.
September 23rd,
And
Common Council October 5th.
Correct.
And they review this or revise it every year? Is that what you said?
The current, so 2020 and did not recommend adoption of it. It is, so basically, I don't know the details of what's within the plan, but the quarry is slated to eventually be closed. And what happens after that is regulated to some degree by, there's state and federal. The long-term plan is to turn it into a park, and so this is that plan. So once it's adopted, not to say that there might never be changes to what's proposed, but I'm sure when it actually comes time to do it, they will have thoughts. But they will have an adopted plan, because you'll have to figure out how to fund it in our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. So,
But there's no time frame on the closure?
Yeah, that's what I was
I'm
wondering.
not sure.
Are they
Actually,
thinking 5 years, 10 years, 30 years?
it's not 5 years, so there's still plenty of aggregate in there.
Oh, okay. So it's
So.
a long term.
Yep. Just throw it
Just
in
throw it
there.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, that'll work for disposal.
Well, they're gonna flood it, so I turned it into.
Now-
Well, I have no doubt.
This is interesting because I wasn't here last month, but there was a special exception for a subdivision. Isn't that right across the street?
Yep.
Yeah.
In the
The special exception was actually for
phase 2.
a path that it was like recommended by the engineer to be so wide. Like if they could have done a bridge, they wouldn't have had to be here. But because the city engineer wanted a path so wide,
Uh-huh,
that's why they weren't here.
Yeah, it's the alternate access to Pleasant View Park.
So wide,
uh-huh.
that's why they weren't here.
Yeah, it's the alternate access to Pleasant View Park because there's only one road.
Okay.
So,
All of a sudden, I'm listening and I'm saying, wow, these are adjacent. These properties are adjacent to each other, aren't they, on 51st there?
yeah, and so the zoning actually, it's a little odd. The quarry is, actually, it's a little odd. The quarry is 2 planned development districts, which means it has like a custom zoning. Immediately across the street on 51st Street from the proposed subdivision is zoned residential.
That's crazy.
Yep.
So weird.
I don't know how that ended up like that, but part of the UDO discussion is also, the map has got some weirdness.
Yeah.
So,
There's a quarry to the north that they turned into they flooded it.
land inquiry,
I can't think of it. Well, there's a beach. People just go up there and just relax, have fun.
Well, that's what we're seeing to with their quarry.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought so.
Yeah,
So
but
it
the only
seems-
thing they had to be careful for was the cliff diving. 'Cause, like, some kids got hurt when my brothers were in high school.
Yeah, and they still do that when I was there. They're jumping high school kids. They're blacked off, but they still go around.
Yeah. Drawbacks, especially when you had houses right there.
So did they say they're gonna have a new quarry somewhere else, or was no talk on that or anything?
I don't believe, so the quarry actually like predates, I believe it predates the incorporation of the city of Franklin. Once it closes, the incorporation of the city of Franklin. Once it closes, I don't know where in the city would be even appropriate for that, and there's nowhere where we would currently allow that. So,
Start with Jim's house.
Just start digging up the garden.
Backyard.
yep,
We've already,
Start digging up the garden.
yep.
we've already allowed 2, so we know what's one more.
There is, some of you may be familiar with the Quarry Monitoring
Yeah.
Committee, which is also a committee of the Common Council, and so they are the main organization that reviews this, and then they also handle complaints, which are frequent about the quarry.
People are, they're always like,
Yeah, so,
Such a good resource.
well, it's loud because they blow up stone.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's why people were complaining about that. Oh my god. Sorry. Why do you guys complain? I've never had my house rumble before. Now I get it. Now I get it. Sorry.
All right, so this item, we'll call it complete.
I think so. If we have any questions, do you want us just to email you?
yeah, I would then refer you to the planner that actually knows the answer.
Yeah, I think environmentally, like, it's the best option unless you fill it with garbage and then try putting stuff on it.
No, it's gonna be a park.
I think it would be better off a park.
Yeah.
It's immediately, like, part of it is in the river floodplain.
Oh, so
It's
that's
right next to the Oak Leaf Trail, so.
It'd be a good park. It'd also help with some flood water if it need be. They're down. Also help with some flood water if it need be. They're down if there's flooding over there.
All right, landfill life expectancy and future plans.
So this item, I just started to work on finding you some information about this, but as you're all aware, there is a landfill on the southwest corner of the city. There is actually a commission, the Landfill Siting Commission is a citizens commission that oversees the siting of the landfill, and that's as far as I got. So,
Yeah, you said it's located in the southwest.
the southwest corner of the city.
Well, give me a street.
Ryan Road and 124th.
Ryan and 124th.
Right.
No, it's actually 124th and County Line.
A great spot.
It is, yeah.
It's a lovely spot.
It's like the armpit of the
So,
Yeah.
Marion, you're
Birds
saying
per
you
square
just
foot,
started to
any other
review this, so I
place.
really can't put, okay.
They're all seagulls.
Seagulls, yep.
Yep.
We watch them fly over.
So
Fly
what
back.
questions do the commission have about it, though? Because
If I don't know the life expectancy of it, it's hard to decide what question they ask, next. I've talked to the guy who is chairman of the landfill commission. They're focused on operating, staying within the regulatory requirements of the thought to what's going to happen the day Waste Management either files for bankruptcy and leaves, or fills it up and files for bankruptcy and leaves. But
Do we have both? Isn't Viola over there too?
say again for so there's like landfill gas harvesting operation, and they operate that pipeline.
Got it. Okay.
there's probably like 4 different firms involved in that. One way
Well,
or
I know
another.
they changed.
Yeah, there's on the north and the south side
Oh,
of the
yeah,
road.
Yeah,
there's one on
there's
the
like-
Racine
So that would
County.
It's the Racine County.
My only concern is how many ski hills can Franklin accommodate? That's
Yeah, what's the future plan of it? So
Yeah.
like, just like we have a plan here for the quarry, what is the plan for the landfill? I guess would be our best
yeah.
question. So, I guess would be our best
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
Mountain bike trails.
So I can tell you a little bit about currently Waste Management owns about, well, they own quite a lot of land. They own quite a lot of land over there. 100 acres immediately east of the landfill is under a conservation easement and will be dedicated to the city at a future date. It's planned for that to be a conservancy park. So it's immediately south of the Franklin Savannah Conservancy Park. So it's immediately south of the Franklin Savannah, and in the town of Raymond, there is another conservancy immediately south of that. So there's a physical limit to how big the landfill can eventually be because they've essentially already dedicated this land over. However, I don't know how much that constrains them in terms of time. So I will see what I can find out.
Got it.
Yeah, it's like,
And then more in Raymond. Look at them trying to offset their footprint.
I think the city is reaching the point where it's like, it's kind of like the, I think the city is reaching the point where it's like, it's kind of like the southwest corner is the only future area that's still really open for alternative development plans. And
Well,
to say, well, we're not sure what's going to happen with that big thing. I mean, I'm a frequent visitor there. I was amazed at how big it got. It was like, whoa. I mean, at least it stayed east or west of 92nd, I think. But, damn, that's big. Really. It makes sense.
well,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how long they're gonna, because there's always that question, like the idea is that it's gonna start decomposing and become actual, like, it should become soil, depending on what they all are putting in. No, you don't think so?
No, they're sealed.
Oh, they seal them.
Yeah, so there's usually a
Yeah.
clay liner.
I know underneath there's one, but they're putting one on top too.
And then they would cap and close it, and it's not, so there's, composting is an area of interest for me, and there is organic material in the landfill
Yeah.
that will decompose, but because they don't restrict what else you can put in it,
Got it. Got it. So then they
apart
can't.
from toxic material, it just becomes, it's.
How
Not just
close
land.
is this to residential property?
There are homes on Oakwood, so.
Because you know
a
our
mile.
dear landfill by the rock, that was, as you know, our
Mile.
dear landfill by the rock, that was a big methane trap for horrendous.
Well, and that's why they're piping it out to be used down at like Jones for the organite, correct?
Yep, yep.
There's also some new developments over that, and like new housing developments, because we always see the.
You know, when I knew the veal company was going in that area. But when I saw the signs go up, it's like there's residential development as part of that area. And it's right next to it. So I mean, I'm not, but that property's gonna be leaking methane for decades, just like the ski hill is still today, from 50 years ago. So I'm real curious what we're gonna try to do with that.
On some of it's the development. I don't know if I would want to buy a property right near there because of what it is. Like, although the wild turkeys are pretty cool, but so I guess that's a choice.
Neighborhood.
I was hoping Overman would perhaps have one or two comments about it.
There's
Looks like they're busy upstairs.
All right,
City water.
next.
I have something before I just mentioned it here. It wasn't anything I felt we needed to put on the agenda, but just a little promo. And I believe they did this last year too, near Halloween time, the library. It's Thursday evening, October 21st, between 5 and 8 p.m. It's called 21st between 5 and 8 p.m. It's called Trunk or Treat. By trunk, it's your car trunk. And again, it's for various community groups that might want to, you know what I'm saying, have some type of promotion going on. I don't know the details on it. There'll probably be something promotion going on. I don't know the details on it. There'll probably be something in the upcoming City of Franklin newsletter, but it's called Trunk or Treat. So, you know, possibly an SUV with a larger trunk or something just might have some promo materials.
Will you decorate the
Will
you decorate the car?
And it's, you know, kind of a fun thing again.
Is it like a night out?
A little bit, yeah, exactly, kind of going with the night out. I wasn't aware of this, and again, it wouldn't have happened last year, so this happened the year before. Maybe it was just in its infancy stage, so if we see a newsletter article or something like that, that we can, yeah.
Okay, next meeting, September 22nd.
Sure.
And
Sorry.
city water supply testing was a item mentioned last week, or last month.
Yep.
I think that was me.
Yep.
And I guess my concern isn't so much about the water supply as the latest batch of terrible news about environmental issues being raised with what are called PFAs, which defy my understanding of them completely, and the concept of the concept of microplastics that we are all drinking. Supposedly, as we speak now, it's reached a point. I don't see how we, at the city level, have much to say about what happens there. And I do not fault the city's handling of the water supply. So I guess I'm curious if the commission would like to pursue more information about this, or, nobody has an answer about how to deal with this stuff.
May I make a recommendation? In our recent newsletter, we received the confidence report, annual report, again, on the quality of water for the city of Franklin. So again, I think, possibly if whoever put this, or any questions that we might have, that might be a way to, you know what I'm saying, handle it.
Yeah, I mean, are we interested in pursuing things? Because I'll put together a small list of questions that I have, and in reading what the city has to say, they're pretty much deferring to Oak Creek
Yeah, they're a water supply.
on water quality and purity. But their testing is quarterly within the city. It's always been well below acceptable limits in terms of any, chemicals or other agents. So I do not dispute any of that. I'm just curious if anyone is addressing these issues at the either Oak Creek level, or the DNR is still supposedly coming up with guidelines, which it's like, well, okay, fine. If they're still working on it, then why even think about it? But
I would say like DNR is that minimum, like the minimum you can do. So we would have to look to Oak Creek to see our option.
my suggestion is I'll send the Oak Creek folks or see who I can talk to there and put together a short list of questions for them. Hopefully they can either advise them or comment on it at least.
City, and not just the rural areas of the city, are still on wells. And so that's a whole separate area.
Are they all on individual wells?
There are some shared wells for certain apartments and condo developments, but for the most part, it's house by house. And in parts of that kind of thing, kind of close approachment, there's quite a few.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They were never connected. They were constructed before the requirement that new developments connect to municipal utilities. And so on a piecemeal basis, they're connecting, but the neighborhood has to choose to, it would be borne by the homeowner. So just bear that in mind when you're formulating your questions.
And some of the wells are being monitored too, I think, right, because the other commission.
There's a board of water commissioners. I don't know what the standards are for residential well testing. I don't know. I just know where the utilities are. We require all new developments to connect to public services. So any new development that's reasonably able to is required to. You can request an exemption if you're like building a house on County Line Road or whatever. But where there's some zonings where it's not strictly required. But generally speaking, if you're going to build a subdivision, you have to connect to utilities. So something to think about.
Okay, so you think by next month?
Yeah.
Right, have some info? Okay, so you think by next month?
Yeah,
Right, have some info?
I'll talk to our folks about our wells, I'll talk to Oak Creek about supply in general.
Okay, we'll have it as new business next month. And,
I have one more comment, if I could. Totally different issue. One more comment, if I could. Totally different issue. The Tree City program that we're part of. I talked about it a little bit already about requiring replacement of trees destroyed in development. I'd like to see us take a strong position somehow in terms of what we expect in terms of replacement when it does come time to level some area. I'm not sure how the canopy system works in terms of, and it probably would be valuable to hear more from someone who either does a section, just to get a sense of how it really does take place.
I can ask Tom. He sometimes does those evaluations.
I don't want to impose on their time all the time, but it's like we don't have one.
Yeah, so I evaluate. I don't have the field shown on a natural resource protection plan. It's just the outline of where is a grove of trees. So
For our Arbor Day program next year, I hope we will expand that to include more information on environmental issues, and possibly the seed giveaway again. People seem to enjoy it at the night out event, and I have no problem making sure there's plenty of them. So I'm done.
all right, so what did we want to, the tree,
Tree City program. Tree City program.
but, well, it's not, isn't that
Isn't that
something
else?
Further explanation of how the tree canopy is evaluated in developments. I guess that's the question I have.
tree canopy evaluation in new development?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's going under for new business for next.
Some information, otherwise it'll be a future agenda.
Okay, because I just have for next meeting, then you are going to be listing the city water that we discussed.
Yes, as new
Yeah,
business.
got it, okay.
Yep.
Really quick question too. The Root Pike Wind was doing the Pleasant View Park weed out or cleanup. What is the status?
Oh, man.
Been done?
I'm sorry, I have a lot going on. I will check.
Have you seen it on their events page or
I
anything?
haven't had a chance to talk to them lately.
Okay.
I've been kind of busy too.
Because I know that
That wasn't the only,
on the website. Sounds like that's cool. So that's what I was wondering, like I haven't seen that one pop up.
Alright, they were doing it with Crucial, which is like a student card, so I don't know if it was open to the public. So, okay.
Any other comments, suggestions?
I motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Time
Time adjourned. 8:29.